I just went for a shoot of Succession. There are 6 cameras which are shooting 20-25 minute long patches where actors are playing it like it's a play. Their style is unlike anything I have seen.
That's goddamn fucking right!
आज का गेस्ट एपिसोड है विद मिस्टर शौनक सेन। शौनक एक फिल्म मेकर हैं। इन्होंने एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री बनाई थी अभी रिसेंटली जिसका नाम है ऑल दैट ब्रीथ्स। All That Breathes was nominated for an Oscar this year. इतनी बड़ी बात है guys, ये मतलब like, and I had been dying to talk to him ever since I had seen the documentary.
You know, this thing about nature is murder, nature is indifferent and violent,
Yeah.
all of that. Documentaries can't just be moralistic and pedantic and didactic and lecture the audience, like hold them by the collar and say, feel bad. You know?
ये एपिसोड आपको बहुत लंबे टाइम के लिए याद रहने वाला है बिकॉज आई हैड बीन थिंकिंग कि पहले कॉलिन एंड समीर आया एंड उसके बाद शौनक सेन आएगा, तो आप लोग काफी खुश होने वाले हो कि हाँ यार हम आपको अच्छा कंटेंट दे रहे हैं।
My top filmmaker, who I cannot believe I have not named because it's almost like he's so big for me that I forgot to mention him, is actually Tarkovsky. Fight Club for me has worked significantly lesser every time.
Easy. This video is brought to you by Mubi, which is a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. आपको Mubi और Mubi Go की 1 साल की सब्सक्रिप्शन मिल जाएगी just for $24.99 if you click on the link in description, which is mubi.com/Chalchitra Talks. Let's jump right inside the episode I did with Shaunak. By the way, watch the episode till the end. Last में मैं आपको एक मेरे end से movie recommendation दूंगा। Hi Shaunak, how are you? Welcome to Chalchitra Talks.
I'm good. Like I was saying, I'm a bit exhausted from all the travels and everything, but I'm good otherwise.
Many congratulations on the Oscar nomination of All That Breathes and all the awards you have won.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
मैं बहुत रूट कर रहा था आपके चैनल पे। हमारा चैनल सिर्फ रिकमेंडेशन का है, तो मैंने इतनी ऑल दैट ब्रीथ्स की बात की है पिछले कुछ महीनों में। लाइक you'd be very happy to know. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, I know everybody was hoping, but the geopolitical climate is such that it was very unlikely that Navalny would not have won.
So आपको ऐसा आइडिया था कि because of the geopolitical situation ऐसा? Yeah.
I think so. So the thing is that, which is not to take away at all from the film, of course. I don't mean to diminish the film. But the thing is कि Academy की voting जिस तरह से चलती है, it's usually, this is the structure, okay? In the beginning, it's your particular branch that votes. So it's the documentary branch for us that is voting. That is about 700 people, okay? तो अब उनमें जब वोटिंग हो रही थी, we were doing very well. हम almost जितने awards से हम सारे जीत चुके थे उसमें. But once you get nominated, it gets opened up to the entire academy, जो कि 10,000 लोगों का है. अब उसमें obviously अगर 10,000 लोगों को आपको reach out करना है, then it's like a populist election, right? Then it's more like people have to put the name and so on, and not everybody is obviously watching documentaries. So then it really becomes a kind of also a popularity contest. Of course, there are surprises and very often there are pleasant surprises and so on. But having said that, उस time पे जो zeitgeist है, that really matters. और अभी obviously, given the geopolitical situation in the world, obviously बहुत anything to do with that part of the world, with Russia, Putin, all of that is obviously very engaging and provocative. And all the other bellwether things in the lead up to it, like we didn't win BAFTA nor some of the other awards right before. So till January हम सब जीत रहे थे और उसके बाद अचानक हारना शुरू हो गए, तो तब that the most likely. So, but I know that there was a lot of excitement back home, but I sort of felt like the writing was on the wall. But we fought very hard. And we fought right till the last thing, but it was an incredibly competitive category, you know. True. Foreign films historically don't often win in the documentary category. So historically, also we had the odds stacked up against us, but also just a very, very competitive, difficult category this year.
But the day you got nominated for this, I felt so proud कि main like documentary वाले zone में हमारी इंडिया से एक film, and like I went to my parents and मैंने उनको बैठ के बताया आपको पता है कितनी बड़ी बात है. Like I was just being so excited about this.
Thank you. No, this is very nice to hear because actually मुझे जब पता चला मैं I was in Utah for Sundance in Park City, or it was -15 outside, and I was alone in an Airbnb.
Oh.
And obviously वहाँ के timing के हिसाब से it came out at 5 in the morning. So obviously nobody slept. All the contenders, nobody would have slept the whole night. So essentially it was like this big thing has happened, but I'm literally alone in minus 15 degrees. So it's very good to hear from people when like they recount how that morning was or that night was.
But like when this happened, like this is something I didn't think I would ask. Like, did you journal it somewhere, or like those moments you felt at that moment? Like, is there a record of those memories?
I did a video recording of because the academy asks you to send a video of it. Ultimately, I was too shy to send it, but I did do a recording of that exact moment. And if you look at it, it's not. I'm not going. I'm not ecstatic. It's just relief. It's just being able to breathe again. And the sheer,
Wow.
all of us have grown up with that Lagan moment when the
Yeah.
nomination happened and all of that. So of course the brain struggles to kind of wrap around, and everything was just so uppy downy and disorienting and discombobulating. It's not very easy to just like soak it in, so it takes time to
Yeah.
fully process it.
Have you done any podcasts or interviews after the Oscars? Is it like one of the yeah?
This is one of the well, it's definitely the first Indian one. So basically, up till the Oscars, we are doing the more urgent sort of things, and then the long form ones. I thought, jab aaram se leisurely way mein I can come back and do it. So I've done a couple of podcasts in the US, but this is my first Indian podcast.
Great. So, first, let's talk about documentaries itself, and I'll take it India and outside of India both. So, in India, which are some of your favorite documentaries, and which are some of your favorite documentary filmmakers?
In India, it's a very peculiar thing, which is that in the last 6-7 years, clearly a undeniably new moment started, right?
Yeah.
Where suddenly docs started doing well. Of course, I mean, people speak about it in very hyperbolic, sometimes overstated ways, like the golden moment in Indian docs, etc. So, of course, you have to be guardedly cautious against. There's still many problems with the documentary circuit. We don't have enough distribution and all the usual obvious things. But I think speaking from the immediate context, I think in the recent years, films like An Insignificant Man by Vinay and Khushbu,
Yes.
Katyabaz, About Love, Placebo, now more recently Writing with Fire. All these films, of course, have changed the landscape. For me, more than favorite, with the documentary world, it's actually a small community. And for me, it was about friendships, really. It started with a lot of us are pitching our films at this forum for documentary funding and just like an incubation lab called Doc Edge in Calcutta. तो अगर आपके पास कोई भी आइडिया है तो आप एक छोटा सा उसके ऊपर राइट अप लिख के और एक डेमो रील like teaser sort of shoot करके you can go and pitch it to like funders and people who will help you polish it and so on. So usme what happens is you make a lot of lasting friendships, a lot of people who've become close friends. So for instance, Vinay, who's now made While We Watched, and Khushbu Ranka, who made An Insignificant Man, was a writer on Ship of Theseus, etc. So I had the great fortune of becoming friends with them. Then a bunch of these other filmmakers, like Abhay, who made Placebo, Archana, who made About Love. It's a tight community. For me, of course, people who went to MCRC and Jamia also went to make a lot of documentaries and so on. In the current crop, it's less inspiration, more a sense of community, solidarity, bonhomie, and camaraderie, of course, which is not to in any way diminish the previous generations. And for me, the earlier people whose work I really admired was people like Deepa Dhanraj, Patwardhan, Ramani, Supriyo Sen, etc. But having said that, the thing is that I felt like personally, I was moving away from the conventional political doc. The doc that is about one issue, about one sort of this thing. And I wanted to... So for me, my heroes actually came often from outside of India. The truth is. So these are all, of course, people that I admired and I grew up watching in film school and so on. It's like I wanted to do this kind of creative nonfiction that was not moralistic or pedantic, or about information, but mainly about like cinematic beauty and, something just cinematic and moves you emotionally through its aesthetic power. So for me, cinematographically, like in terms of camera skill, my biggest discovery is somebody who I can't recommend enough. he's not well known in India, and I hope people follow his work, is somebody called Viktor Kosakovsky. He's a Russian non-fiction filmmaker, master, incredible camera. I've never seen that kind of camera work. I actually had the great privilege of basically reaching out to his DP and saying, please aake hamari film shoot kariye. And he actually, Ben Bernhardt came, who's his Kosakovsky's DP, who came and shot. So I think it's same. Some other names would be Joshua Oppenheimer, who made Act of Killing. It was also very good. So in docs, I would say it's, of course, the classics like Harzog and Errol Morris. But I like non-fiction filmmakers who are doing something outside of the the conventional doc form.
It's interesting the first few names you also mentioned, because मैंने भी कुछ नाम लिखे हुए थे that I would want to speak to you about. So Abhay is also actually a friend, and like when Mami was happening a few years back, he stayed at my place and I learned so much from him. And Placebo is also one of those films that I talked a lot about when it came out, because you use this very interesting term, creative non-fiction, right? So जैसे अभय का आपने बताया, and Archana also about love, particularly for both these two like things. इनके बारे में मैंने चैनल पे भी बहुत बात की है, and all that breeds also उसी यूनिवर्स का, उसी कम्युनिटी का मेरे को भी पार्ट लगा था.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, community in every sense of the word, because we're all also good friends. If I couldn't meet him in Amsterdam right now because he had fever when I was there, but Abhay and I have had long chats and coffees and about what to do and all of that. So, and we're all, a few years ago, the thing is that all of us were facing similar battles. And where do we raise funding from? All of us, I think, had opted to not go to the behemoth that is Bollywood. I'm honestly a bit scared of deep diving into, not because, I enjoy films from Bombay. I just mean that this big industry and, this whole thing that you're told in film school ki, aapko pehle third AD, फिर second AD, फिर first AD, and you have to work your way up through the ranks. A lot of us, I think, became friends in our loneliness and in our decision to depart from that kind of not to over romanticize it, but for a lot of us it was big. So with Vinay and Khushbu, the thing is that for my previous film called Series of Sleep, I was working with their camera. We were constantly exchanging equipment and so on. So there's a lot of cross-pollination, and because it's a fragile, precarious community, really.
I also like some of the masters you mentioned from outside of India. So I am also a big Werner Harzog fan. Which is your favorite Werner Harzog documentary?
I really love him and I really hate him. It's really funny.
Let's first talk about the hate part.
Yeah, happily. So the thing is that, but let me put this in context. He's an absolute staggering, monumental, magisterial master, right? But like with all our, there's too many films being made. The recent films you feel don't have the kind of depth that Pete Herzog had. It feels a bit of a factory line. It feels like the texture of voice, the thing that one loves in Harzog, that kind of perspective, and it's a vocal perspective, feels like there's a kind of turn towards it where it feels like it's an inward loop that's moving towards, I won't say caricature, but a familiarity. With Herzog, the thing is that the things that I loved was the searing intensity of illuminating the world in a specific way, the love for images, and the complete banishment of cliches at one point of time. I'll tell you the moment that I hate the most in Herzog films. Have you seen Grizzly Man?
Yeah.
So in Grizzly Man, which is a film again that I absolutely adore and absolutely get bothered by, there's that moment when the character Timothy Treadwell, who on whose life and archive the film is on, the guy who lives with bears and loves bears, all of that, and then he and his girlfriend get unfortunately killed by bears, by a bear, and there's that moment where there's a tape recording.
I knew you would say that. When he listens to it.
So when the bear attacked their tent, they tried to record it but couldn't take the lens cover of the camera off. So the sound of them being mauled violently is there. Now, a friend of the deceased Timothy Treadwell, Timothy is about to give the tapes to Harzog, and he puts on the headphones and listens, and we have an over-the-shoulder shot of him, right?
Yeah.
And after a while, we just see him go, right? And for me, that moment always like, what's happening? And then he takes off the headphones and says, "This is truly horrible," something to this effect. "This is truly horrible," and that for the sake of the dignity of Timothy's person, he doesn't make the audience hear it. Now that moment for me I've always been fascinated, because I felt like there's a kind of it's a bit of a con, that moment.
Yeah.
Because you see what you're in that one moment when he's just doing this and we are not hearing it, but all of us in our head is imagining the worst blood-curdling scream, right? So giving that silence where he's listening to it and us seeing his response and Timothy's friend's reaction at looking at his face, the empty space of imagination is anyway completely denuding the moment of the said dignity, right?
या तो वो भी नहीं दिखाते, या तो वो वाला part भी नहीं दिखाते.
I felt like it was a kind of a roundabout aesthetic job of मैं दिखाऊंगा भी नहीं, and I'll do this kind of a gesture, but at the same time that kind of a thing. I'm never but again, like, good art is provocative, so I was bothered and disturbed by this sort of thing. And this is not like just a academic ethical compunction. It's like, the tools that he sometimes uses. I feel like the other thing is that I feel like when I was much younger, I was hypnotized by his relationship to nature. But now I feel like it's this thing about nature is murder, nature is indifferent and violent, all of that. And the truth is that we know that, of course, nature is all of that. Of course, nature can be also bone cancer in children and animals being torn to shred by their predators and so on. But at the same time, there is also the magisterial beauty of nature. There are also moments of quietness, restraint, subtlety, comicality, and a whole bandwidth of the world that can be configured as nature, right? And which has a panoply of emotions. And he sort of like homes in on this kind of, like this kind of a...
True.
So, and over time, I felt like I got interested in other aspects of nature as well. While I'm appreciative of the
fair.
Of the unvarnished, unbridled cruelty of nature, but there are other aspects to it. But now that I've said things I don't like, let me leave at least by saying a thing I do like. In that film, I'm forgetting the name about, he's in, I think, Greenland.
Okay.
Antarctica or Greenland, I'm forgetting. So it's like just a continent of ice.
At the end of the world, something like that.
Yeah, Encounters at the End of the World.
Encounters at the end of the world.
So there's this herd of penguins that are going.
Oh,
and dude. Suddenly, one penguin turns and goes in the opposite direction, and in front of it is, the whole continent of ice. And Harzog puts operatic music, and the voiceover says that, and he asks the scientist if penguins can be known to go mad, and he says no, there might be aberrant behavior, but no. But he says this particular penguin, even if you turn it around, will continue walking in that direction when it knows that everybody else is walking towards the water, and this penguin is walking towards certain death, right? And that operatic music, and he says that he talks about it as if it's a kind of delirious bid towards suicide. And that kind of like that. So, that one image alongside the music and the Harzog voice, that concatenation of those three things just elevates it to something which is crazy. Right? It's like that kind of like that it dials it up to something, and that's the genius of that voice movement. Right? So that kind of a thing is phenomenal.
And I'm great you mentioned this scene, because ये scene मैंने मेरे friends को as a bet के दिखाया है कि this is the peak Harzog, where everything came together.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how you mentioned that thing, the thing he has with nature. Remember that line he says, I think in Burdens of Dreams, where he says that these birds are not chirping, they are screaming in misery or something like that.
Yes. So the screaming of misery is exactly the bit that actually encapsulates what I was saying about his relationship to nature.
Yeah.
Which is a kind of a Joseph Conradian sort of which I appreciate. I mean, there are, times when one needs to have that kind of a perspective, but that can't be the be all and end all. And I feel like I'm personally interested right now in another arc of the natural world.
Yeah. Do you think what the kind of things you hate about Herzog, and somewhat like I also don't like a lot. Sometimes, do you think the brand becomes the monster? It's something I'm very
Yeah.
interested in.
That's
Yeah.
what I mean by the inevitable loop of self-caricaturizing.
Hmm.
The voice that we were just celebrating itself becomes like in other films like the volcano film or
Last of Fear.
or the internet film. It doesn't work, the voice. I mean, for me, all of this is my personal this thing. And again,
Yeah.
just to qualify, because I don't want Herzog fans to come at me, when one says hate one, it's almost like one loves Sachin, but there might be one, if he's going on getting LBW'd in one particular way, despite your love for it, there's a subset of it which feels exasperated, right? So it's that kind of a this thing. But the recent films of his, I haven't enjoyed as much.
Yeah. And for me, I've never enjoyed any fictional film of like I don't enjoy fiction work.
Mm-hmm.
Like वो मेरे से देखा ही नहीं जाता for some reason. So I'm always like into his documentary work. But it's great. Like some of the other
You
names
didn't
also.
like Fitzcarraldo or any of those
मेरे को
films?
Fitzcarraldo, I like the intent of it. Like the making is Burden of Dreams, na?
Yes.
जो what's his name?
Yes.
Eron Morris.
Yes.
So I liked it better than Fitzcarraldo.
Right. I mean, that's a common this thing. A lot of people would say because the project of the whole thing is so insane that for sure. I like certain moments or the philosophical nudges that sometimes he makes. Like in Bad Lieutenant, I like the ending of it, for instance. But I completely agree with you about the preference for non-fiction over fiction. I didn't like the Nicole Kidman film at all. And so because the sort of stuff that the magic that suddenly emanates out of an encounter with the real, I think dissipates when we know that the world is a construct in fiction.
He once made an ad for about drinking, texting and driving.
Yes.
I hated it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to not think of that as I mean, even masters have minor works.
Yeah.
Like, what did you think of Kurosami's last film in Japan? Did you see that one?
I've seen some of his work, but the last one is?
He made this film that was based in Japan. I'm forgetting its name. And it, like everybody was, I remember the responses being that everybody was a bit bamboozled by it. Or even this other film with Juliette Binoche called Certified Copy or something, I'm forgetting.
Yeah, Certified Copy. Yeah, I've seen Certified Copy.
Yeah, so those feel at first glance a bit underwhelming compared to his masterly work.
Yeah, true.
His regions, right? But you have to, I think over time one has to, when you really follow biographically a person's work across, and we're talking about masters like it could be Kurosawa or Claire Denis, where the stuff that you hate about their filmography reveals something about the rest of their filmography. So even that is of value. So it's not like a monolithic or a single-toned hate, right? Or dislike.
Yes.
Because there's a value in that also. Like, right? So it's like if we let's talk about other masters in this. Let's talk about minor works of great filmmakers. Right?
Yes.
So for instance, Shatranj Ke Khiladi for Satyajit Ray is often a film that people think is not one of the major ones of his oeuvre, even though he had like actors from the US and like well-known and Richard Attenborough and all of those people come in. But I find it very charming, and like the ways in which it opens up the rest of his practice is or his relationship to history and his attempts to do animation and all of that are very, very, very interesting. Similarly, I don't know if you've seen Claire Denis's film that came out last year. It's called Stars in the Afternoon. And you feel like...
I haven't.
So you feel like, how does somebody who made, all the work that she's made, Beautrevet and all of that, make this? But it's a real thing to focus on the work of masterly directors when they're at their weakest. Because certain things are very interesting to look like. Certain things reveal themselves or betray themselves as their strengths, and the edifice or shell of their craft suddenly becomes transparent. And it's a very, very interesting moment.
I relate so much to what you're saying because a few years back, my favorite filmmaker used to be Richard Linklater. Like everything he did, I loved it. But then there were some non-Linklater like films he made. Like there's this film, Jack Black film, Bernie. Like I saw
Right.
Bernie and
haven't seen
I
it.
couldn't appreciate it.
Mhm.
Then there is one baseball film I think he made. So मैं एक ऐसी stage पे आ गया कि I started not seeing those works because it is going to do something to the image that I am carrying of Linklater in my mind. Because I
Yeah.
used to get scared कि here I watched Linklater and I didn't enjoy it. So I
Yeah.
would watch the waking lives and all the sunsets and sunrise. But Bernie type when he tried to do something and I'm like, I can't appreciate it. So मैंने
Yeah,
उनकी एक
but
दो
give
films
it time. Give it time because see, the thing
yeah,
is that you might continue to dislike it, but who you are in relationship to who he is will also obviously evolve, right?
fair,
So,
fair, fair, fair,
just like
fair.
I feel like when people ask me what it was like to begin a film, and
Hmm.
it's like you become the person who can make the film through the making of the film, right?
Hmm.
Similarly, when you really love something, if you really, really, truly love a work of art, and you really hate some other work of art by the same artist, over time, your relationship with that dislike also changes and you understand something about it. So, sitting with that kind of a lack of connection with somebody you connect with so much illuminates something about that connection. And I think over time, you'll probably go back to this film
Very
eventually.
nice. Yeah, I think I need to loosen up a little there and like not be that stringent over it. But I also like Shaunak want to mention this one documentary short film which is about a hen. I think it's called Tungdos. Like you might have you.
Yes. Yes.
What's your opinion of it? मैंने को
I
लगा था
like it.
कि
It's very
yeah
charming. It's very, I wish like we really need more work of that sort, and documentary that doesn't take itself very seriously also
hmm
exist. Like documentaries can't just be moralistic and pedantic and didactic and lecture the audience, like hold them by the collar and say, feel bad. Of course, there's space for that kind of a thing, but we really need to have docs that, and films like Superman of Malegaon, and have
hmm
you seen that? That's very nice. It's
yeah 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 yeah
that's very very nice. So one needs these kinds of films certainly where there's a kind of charming effervescence to it.
Yeah. The one of the first guests on my channel many years back was Varun Grover, and he said something which always stayed with me. So he just came and recommended documentaries on like my channel, like three in over 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And he said one thing, he said कि मेरे हिसाब से जब कहानी झूठी हो तो सच्ची लगनी चाहिए, and जब कहानी सच्ची हो तो वो झूठी लगनी चाहिए कि मतलब इट इज सो बिजार. सो ही वाज ट्राइंग टू टॉक अबाउट कि अगर फिक्शनल वर्क है तो वो सच्चा लगना चाहिए एंड डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज ऐसी होनी चाहिए कि सच्ची चीज को ऐसे दिखाओ कि यार ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता. And then he made this in favor of like how the documentaries and like how they are kind of a superior, somewhat a superior art form than normal films. So ये जो उनकी line है, like do you have any thoughts about
Yeah, I
it?
have many thoughts on it. But let me just say that superior to कुछ नहीं होता.
नहीं नहीं
Right?
उसको
Can't
नहीं
ever
अगर
say,
बट जो ओवरऑल जो दी झूठी
yeah,
और
because
सच्ची
everything
वाली.
has its own context and particular matrix of form and aesthetics,
Yeah,
and obviously, if I look at it a bit differently, I'm very interested in documentaries which feel like their form is pushing towards fiction.
yeah.
Which is not to say कि लगे कि inauthentic है. That's not what I'm saying.
हाँ हाँ
But
हाँ
where
हाँ.
the grammar or the vocabulary of the film is such कि एक control ऐसा है कि my interface with the world itself is being crystallized in an aesthetic form जो कि structure दे रहा है and it's adding its own feelings to it. Our interest in All That Breathes was also to make that.
Yeah.
Kosakovsky's films also do that. एक director का मैंने अभी नाम लिया था called Gianfranco Rossi. उसका भी like that form is very very interesting. It's like I haven't seen too many non-fiction like this ever. So in that sense, yes, but I understand the sense in which I think Varun Grover is saying it. Non-fiction can also be hypnotically, obsessively, like ravenously incredible. And fiction can also be, but I wouldn't call it, it depends really on the particular world of that text, and कब क्या झूठ लगे कब क्या अच्छा is entirely dependent on the specificity of that work.
Yeah. जो आप ये जो बात कर रहे हो कि मूविंग टुवर्ड्स फिक्शन डॉक्यूमेंट्री वाली, देयर इज दिस फिल्म मेकर जो मेरे को अभी याद आया, कबीर मेहता है उनका नाम. ही मेड दिस फिल्म कॉल्ड बुद्धा.mov.
Yeah.
या सो उनका भी मेरे को लगता था कि मैं बोलूं क्या इसको, इज इट अ डॉक्यूमेंट्री, इज इट नॉट अ डॉक्यूमेंट्री.
Yeah, I'm a bit ashamed to say that I haven't actually seen it yet, even though
ओह
it's a friend of mine, Akash Bhatia, who produced it, who made Loop Lapeta and stuff.
या
So I haven't seen it, but I know that that's a form that really, that's also a
या
form that kind of pushes. But I haven't unfortunately seen it.
गॉट इट. So, or I may do this mistake and tell me if it's a mistake. मैं बहुत बार All That Beats को as a film ही बोलता हूँ. Like I don't call it like a
Yeah,
documentary. So
I
is it
prefer
wrong?
that. No, I prefer that because you see, not because I have any uh, cudgels to pick up against the documentary form, but mainly because documentary is just saddled with such a
Yeah.
heaviness to it, ki documentary, So I just, because of the baggage it carries in the world, I prefer calling it a film.
Amazing. So now let's talk about some films you love and filmmakers you love. हमने documentaries की बात कर ली. Now let's come towards the fiction side of things.
Okay, so I can talk about people I'm really, in the fever dream of currently, because I try and watch a lot of films, so that keeps changing. But or I can talk about people who were really important for me growing up, like in film school and after and all of that. So for me, people who were really big then were, well, firstly was Michael Haneke. White Ribbon for me was, my God, I just it just changed the way I was looking at films. Or Lars von Trier's Dogville was real. Like I'd never seen that kind of a formal. Of course, one has differences with Lars von Trier now. The thing is, it's a predictable cliche for a Bengali to say Satyajit Ray, but Satyajit Ray and Ghatak were also very big. Claire Denis was big. Agnes Varda was also big. And of course, Kubrick, especially like Clockwork Orange, etc. I was interested in. But these are also films that, like, when you grow a bit older, sometimes you feel like you've grown out. Like I feel like I've grown out of Clockwork Orange a bit. I don't love it as much. Like for me, it hasn't aged that well. But when I saw it, my mind was really, really, really blown. Back then, I also really loved Terry Gilliam. I loved I loved Jia Zanke. I loved Bahman Ghobadi, Makmal Buff, Kiarostami. I can't believe I didn't name Bergman. I'm like, it's like that. The thing, I love Fritz Lang, I love Ziga Vertov, and my top filmmaker, who I cannot believe I have not named, because it's almost like he's so big for me that I forgot to mention him, is actually Tarkovsky. Tarkovsky now for me at this stage of my practice and thinking is probably the top echelon of this thing. Tarkovsky and Stoker especially is the top.
Stoker.
Yeah.
Nice.
I have also, there are other people that you like, but you want to like more, but like I never fully got into Truffaut. Truffaut just doesn't do
400 blows, no?
Yeah, I never fully got into I mean, Almodovar and all of these guys are fun, but I never fully got into this thing. I like Fellini. Have you heard of this silent filmmaker from the 1920s called F.W. Murnau?
I don't think so, no.
He made a film called Nosferatu.
I have heard of this.
The vampire film, 1927.
Nosferatu मेरे को शायद Harzog की वजह से पता है.
So what Harzog did was that he remade a very closely this thing copy of the Murnau film, which some judge had apparently banned, and he had to burn all DVDs, like a classic Herzogian kind of a folklorish story. But that director Murnau is very, 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 very interesting to me. I haven't spoken about any contemporary people. I like Bong Joon-ho. I don't want to take the name of the usual guys. I like Paul Thomas Anderson also. I like, those guys. But I'll tell you, why don't you throw some names at me?
So I'll tell you, do you like Lee Chang-dong? Like,
yes, Burning and stuff like that.
Yeah, so like I am a big fan of like his Peppermint Candy, poetry, and Burning. Like, so Lee Chang-dong मेरे को बहुत अच्छा लगता है. And मैं उनका नाम हमेशा गलत pronounce करता हूँ. The Decision to Leave guy, Park Chan-wook. So have you seen Decision to Leave?
Yes, and actually I had the great, because you see, Park Chan-wook was Decision to Leave also premiered at Cannes, where I was also showing. So I very briefly met, and it was a huge privilege and so on.
Wow.
Director Park, as he's known as. So I was full, yeah, of course. I mean, come on, literally.
कैसी आपको कैसी लगी decision to leave?
Very polished and sophisticated in its craft, but it wasn't a new emotional experience.
Such nicely put, very nice. Yeah, because every time I also talk about it, I talk about the direction. But
It's you can see that this is a guy who's at the height of his powers in terms of speaking the language of cinema with great fluency. But it wasn't a new emotional experience for me.
Yeah.
Like with a lot of these kinds of directors, you want a new emotional movement, like peak Lars von Trier, not the slightly off kilter, but peak Lars von Trier. Every film was a new emotional experience, you know, like Europa, or all of these films are just a really new experience cinematically.
Yeah.
Even right up till a film like Melancholia, actually, like
I love Melancholia.
You feel like you've never seen something like this.
I have a friend like who got a printer. He's a filmmaker. His film actually got into Toronto Film Festival last year. It's called Dug Dug. So he got this printer, and I got like all these like small posters from. So there is. I love 5 centimeters per second. I Makoto Shinkai.
Right.
Like there is Climax.
Yes.
We didn't speak about Gaspar Noé.
We didn't speak about Gaspar Noé. You know, I need to prepare for Gaspar Noé, and I've often felt in recent years that I haven't had the mental proclivity for that kind of a Gaspar Noé space, so I haven't gone back to him. So you know, there are filmmakers that you admire more than you like.
Wow. Yeah. True.
So it's that kind of a thing.
True. And like, just like, because these are
like
giving me
Coen brothers, like some films of the Coen brothers.
Yes.
I feel like some of their works that are fantastic are not praised enough. Like Inside Llewyn Davis for me was just, I just love it so much. Like,
yeah, man.
So much, because the ability to speak in a kind of texture in that film is really directorial craft-wise. Just every single decision of lensing, of stay, of the rhythm and cadence of the edit, it's phenomenal. Just so good. And also a difficult film in terms of how straightforward, simple, yet elliptical it is.
Yeah. So yeah, these we can always keep coming back to the movies now, but like I also want to deep dive into TV shows.
I'm terrible at talking about TV shows because I keep forgetting which ones I had. Will you just throw some?
Yeah. So I'll show you some posters I have, like the recent ones. One is Better Call Saul.
Yes, of course. I mean, come on.
So
let's not even talk about these. Let's not talk about Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul or all of,
I was late to the party.
I just went for a shoot of Succession. I had the great privilege because basically I'm not name dropping. Let me get to the story. Funny story. So I was going from BFI in London to New York, and the thing is that between me and it's funny. It's going to sound funny. My producer Aman, we had one front of plane ticket. Okay, with like, so we thought ethically the thing to do is, of course, we'll half it. So he was in the first half, and then I went Aage to exchange. And then I noticed that the guy sitting next to me was working on a screenplay format. So of course I started talking, and turns out he's actually this actor you've seen in like character roles, etc. Somebody called Fisher Stevens. So Fisher Stevens is a character actor in Succession, but he's also directed many films. He's directed, lots of films, like one with DiCaprio, one with Justin Timberlake, etc. Now he and I got on very well, which was a big, like kindly of him. So and I saw a rough cut of his film, and we got on very well. He came and hosted one screening of my film in New York and so on. And then he said, "Hey, there's a really big sequence being shot for Succession. Do you want to come?" What? And I went for the shoot. And I'm not going to give any spoilers, but a very big character will not be the same at all. Let me just say this. But anyway, spoiler aside, the way they shoot that. So that episode was being shot by Mark Mylod.
The best of the lot, like one of the best directors.
And he's the guy who directed, I think, The Menu recently and so on.
Yeah.
Pretty solid director, right? So anyway, but their style is unlike anything I have seen. So this is what they do. This is how Succession is shot.
Crazy.
They shoot it like a documentary. There are 6 cameras, usually 5 or 6 cameras. which are shooting 20-25 minute long patches. At least that day, that's what they were doing. I don't know if they regularly do it. But pura 15 से 20 minute का एक sequence where actors are playing it like it's a play, like it's a proscenium theater thing. And different the cameras are doing like मतलब अलग-अलग vantage points है. और DP 6 monitors के सामने बैठा है. उसके साइड में director और producers 6 monitors के सामने बैठे हैं. And they're just saying, camera 2 go a bit closer, camera 4 go a bit closer. So it's almost like live switching, you know. So that style that they have of the handheld verite observational style of shooting, they really do it like 20-minute long takes हो रहे हैं of characters. It's a bit improvised also, like moments and etc. और 5-6 roving cameras है. So it was very instructive actually.
It would be crazy if I spot you in Logan's Roy funeral. Like
No, I was in the this thing. I'm not
yeah. So this is insane. Like, I'm so glad like you shared this. What's your opinion of Succession? Like, are you a fan?
I wasn't a fan in the first season because I thought that it was taking some decisions which were formulaic and a bit easy. But I thought the series really matured into something else by season 2 and season 3. It became good.
Wow.
But it's not the sort of thing that actually gets me going, honestly. But I enjoyed it and I was fairly hooked onto it. But it's not the sort of thing that blows my mind, you know.
Yeah.
Let's talk about actually, I'll tell you what, look, let's not talk about all of this. Like, this is all big stuff that everybody knew. The fandom of this is fairly mainstream. Let's talk about smaller shows that are very good but are not very well known.
Please.
I really love this show called Flowers.
Okay, I haven't heard of it.
It's a British show by this guy. I'm forgetting his name. He's in the new season of White Lotus. I'm just going to Google it and tell you. Will Sharp is his name, and Olivia Colman is in it, and so on. It's a weird sort of a thing that I really enjoyed. The last thing that I really liked and enjoyed was actually Mayor of Easttown.
Oh,
the Kate Winslet show, also very good. I liked House of Dragon a lot. Very, very
nice.
Sophisticated.
Nice.
Well, House of Dragon is not a small show. Of course, neither is Mayor of Easttown. But did you guys see things like Olive Kittredge?
So crazy, because I have a movie club on WhatsApp and we have a rule there because I talk about Olive Kittredge so much. If you haven't seen Olive Kittredge, you can't be in that group. Like, this is like a dig we take. Like, it's a joke we have because I'm a big fan of Olive Kittredge.
So I like these kinds of, I like Broadchurch. I liked Olive Kittredge. I liked Flowers. I like, these are the shows that need to be, I think, more spoken about in the cultural bloodstream.
Yeah, so और मेरे को लगता है shows में जो ये mini series आ रही है ना, जो one season में खत्म हो जाती है, they are killing it there. And have you seen Sharp Objects?
I have. It's very good.
Yeah, I like it more than Mayor of Easttown. Like, so, and I'm a big John Mark Valle fan also. So
those kinds of limited series things are very good. I'm actually quite interested. I recently read the announcement that Ritesh Batra is making A Fine Balance. I don't know if that's still happening, but I remember reading the headline. But that'll be really exciting because I can't wait for a good limited edition Indian show.
Wow. Yeah, and glad like you're mentioning all these names. But are you into also the comedy genre, like the Barrys and like the Ramis? Have you seen Barry or Rami?
Both I like a lot. Barry, that episode of that, where he goes to kill the guy and his daughter is this.
Oh, yeah. Season 2, episode 5, I think.
Middle of season. That's phenomenal. Yeah. Like that episode is like, it's, some shows suddenly, it's like if there's a bell called perfection, which only some films are able to toll, like for me, White Woman jumps up and tolls it. Only some films are able to hit that sort of. Certain moments in shows are able to do it, which suddenly become just so superlatively good. The moment when the fox comes in Fleabag at the end, the tiny fox comes, and she says that way, he went that way. Those kinds of moments are excellent. But which shows, like you're often struggling with the unevennesses of it, and it's not an easy form at all.
This is beautiful. Like, I'm glad like we are discussing all these shows.
What are your favorite title credit sequences?
You know, okay, it's a small name drop from my end because that is the only name drop I'll do, because I am a big Better Call Saul fan, and for the 100th episode of my show, like I got the creator Peter Gold, and like because it was a big deal for us when, because I approached him via Twitter and he agreed to come. So this is the exact same question I asked him: which are your favorite title credits? And I'm glad like you also are discussing this. So I like True Detective's title credits.
Yeah.
True
Which
Detective
one?
is season one, the season one's title credits.
Yeah.
And
In
then
season 2, the title credit was also nice, but I just loved the Leonard Cohen title track so much that it was more about the song.
Leonard Cohen was in season 2, kya?
Yeah.
So I like season 2 ka title credit. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I like Leftovers season 1 title credits. And I kind of also like those small like title credits, just Atlanta, like the way they
Yes,
just
of
play with the
course.
font.
Yes,
Yeah,
of course. I loved the Leonard Cohen one, which I was
yeah.
curious to see which one you liked. I like simple ones with like one high concept sort of a thing instead of. So, for instance, the ones that I don't like are the Amazon Lord of the Rings, or the really big ones I don't like. The Game of Thrones title credit has become this thing of like, now for me, it's become, wherever I hear it, I get a bit, like all that, those long years of the association with that show gets triggered. So I think it's also like this kind of a Pavlovian bell for me.
Matlab, I didn't understand.
The that title credit, you start associating it with 5 years ago when you were very excitedly waiting for it on Fridays. So it's become that kind of a mnemonic for me.
Yeah. I also like the title credits of Scam 92.
Oh yeah, it's a very catchy thing, no?
Yeah, I actually got the creator of those title credits for a podcast. His name is Jishnu Chatterjee. So he makes all these title credit for Netflix and Prime shows. And I was like, this is amazing. I really like Scam 92's title credit.
What did you think of Mad Men?
Mad Men, I'm currently watching it. I'm on season 6 and I really like it. Like on the good days, I don't like to skip it because it kind of gets you in the zone. It gets you in the mood.
Yeah, same. That's the best title credits are ones where when you're relaxing some evening, when you have time to really savor the show, you watch the title credit because you take such joy from it.
I have a hot take about Last of Us title credits. I think they are very average because it's a very Game of Thrones trope, like the way the Last of Us title credits were there.
See, my life has been totally hijacked in the last 6 months by the Oscar.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I haven't seen anything at all in terms of shows because shows take up too much time, and last 6 months I've not had the time. I'm very caught up with films of the last few years, but not shows. I still think of classy credits like The Simpsons, where there's a yellow font, and we shouldn't forget the simple classic ones in the wake of the really showy, complex new ones.
Yeah, and particularly like a lot of contemporary filmmakers like doing that, and I really like it. Okay, on just a black slate also, when sometimes a small simple music is playing, sometimes like it just feels right.
The Simpsons was that. It's literally clouds and a yellow font like The Simpsons.
Yeah. Amazing. Like such great. Are there any memorable title credits for you in films?
Well, what did you think of the title credit sequence in Drive My Car?
I don't remember Drive My Car.
It came after 45 minutes.
Yeah, I love just a climax with the way they did title credits. Having said all of this, I just suddenly remembered I love the title credits of All That Breathes. The tree, it's amazing. Now, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we worked very hard on it, but to make it simple, like clean and simple. Because of course, when you're making a film about a black kite, a bird, there's so many things you can do with the title credit, right? A bird flies and something comes. It's like, because you have a vector, you have a moving object. But I like just like going from a beam of a car headlight to a whitewash and just
it's beautiful. Now let's get into books. I'm very curious to know like the books that you love. I'll also show you this book I'm currently reading because we talk a lot about books on our channel. It's a very famous book, but I'm reading it now, The Letters to a Young Poet.
Oh, Rilke.
Yeah.
I can't see it. Is it the Rilke book?
Yeah, the Rilke book. So I'm reading it right now. I'm loving it. It's only 60 pages long, and I read one letter at a time and then just keep going back to it. Which are the books you are into?
That's going to be impossible for me to answer because I really love books. But maybe we can talk about letter books. Let's talk about my favorite because you just brought up a
letter book. Yeah.
I love letters.
Lovely.
Usually, it's like a time machine, and it's a message in a bottle, and it's both a kind of excavation of the private and the personal, and it's a reaching out to. So I love letters of, like, books that contain letters of scientists. I was reading this book recently, which basically is Nazi soldiers writing letters to their families. And it's really, really fascinating. Crazy. Because essentially, like, in one letter, you realize that he's talking about, like, he's writing home and saying, how is the little one? How are you? Blah, blah, blah. And then every now and then he says a line like, today we killed so-and-so vermin. Today we killed these. And then afterward, you realize, oh God, that's what he's talking by vermin or insects. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about concentration camps. And what that sort of a thing it opens up is that that's how deeply ingrained this kind of a eugenics perspective of dehumanizing people he was killing was. So, like, letters are very, very, very revelatory. Have you heard of When We Cease to Understand the World?
I haven't.
I can't recommend it enough. It's this crazy kind of a fever dream of a book about scientists taken from letters and, like, biographical archives of things. And it's about the relationship between knowledge and unknowability and madness. Very, very, very good. But also, like, it'll remind you of letters. I like diary entries a lot and journal entries.
Wow.
Especially when it comes to filmmakers' biographies. So when it comes to Tarkovsky, more than Sculpting in Time, which is his magnum.
Yeah, I've read that one. Yeah.
I prefer his diaries.
Oh.
Because really amazing personal thoughts, and you get a person in their fully flawed, uneven glory, I love Susan Sontag's diaries and letters. Well, in terms of filmmakers, this new compendium of Satyajit Ray's diary entries, and which is not just his essays, which are very well, because he was just such a crafty writer and speaker, so structured and articulate and all of that. So to get diary entries of his scribbles and sketches is very, very good. In terms of filmmakers' biographies, which I think are the best film school books you can read, more than a how-to or, more than a Robert McKee's story or a Sid Field or all of that, like the usual, the kind of thing that screenwriters read in order to learn.
I know.
Structure and all of that, which honestly, like, to my mind, is not very productive or helpful at all, because, these are not formulae. So I like Sid Field's Making Movies a lot. Very, very interesting. I love Ingmar Bergman's biography.
I think I've read it. Yes.
Beautiful, just beautiful. Kurosawa's biography, something like autobiography, it's called.
Yeah, I've read it.
It's not a very easy read, but some moments of it are very good.
I felt cheated when I read it because I think either it was Bergman or Kurosawa who said, I don't want to talk about my life after 1950. There was this line in either of the two books. And I'm like...
Yeah, Kurosawa. So, well, Bergman is not that. Bergman excavates his childhood like the, the what he calls the magic lantern phase. Very, very, very interestingly. Robert Bresson wrote a thing called On Cinematography, which is excellent.
Lovely stuff.
If you like interview books, you'll love Truffaut versus Hitchcock.
Yeah.
It's Truffaut and Hitchcock having conversations.
Yeah. I just want to talk about one book which has shaped me the most in my filmmaking journey. It's I can't recommend it enough. It's Elia Kazan's autobiography, Alive.
I haven't read it. I've heard it's very good.
I think 7 to 8% of my personality ka credit. I wouldn't have survived in this field if had I not read it. And I think I've read it 2 times, 2.5 times. It's like a pocket of stillness. I keep going back to it. Makes me calm. Okay. And he was 80 when he wrote it, and he just wrote everything. It's unbelievable the kind of stuff he wrote. I was like, is it
Well,
allowed
80 is
to?
a very 80 is a very interesting age for filmmakers historically.
Yeah.
Because you see, it's like, do you know about Kurosawa's letter to Bergman?
It's a very famous letter, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when I think it was Bergman's 72nd birthday, when Kurosawa wrote him and said that he wished him good health so that he can make more films, and said that I believe that a person makes their top piece of work at the age of 80, and he was 80 then. And he
Wow.
talks about his painter who started changing his style of painting after the age of 80, and everything changed and he liked it a lot.
Wow. Such a beautiful thought.
That's quite hopeful. I mean, I'm very cynical about aging, but it's a very hopeful, liberating thought.
Yeah, this is amazing. And I had to mention, like, because I am also a lot into autobiographies and biographies. Can you recommend some autobiographies and biographies which are not film related in general, like the ones you like?
I like a lot of science writing, biographical in nature somewhat. So Richard Feynman is excellent. His essays and all of that. I like Robert Sapolsky a lot. I like Daniel Dennett a lot. I think these guys talk beautifully about the world and life itself and, evolution and all of those things. So a poetic register. So it's not like dry science, but it's really poetic, which I really love. So I think that kind of work.
There's another book I have here, which I think you'll like. So I'm reading it right now. How Proust Can Change Your Life. Like, because the author is someone that I really look up to, Ellen de Botton.
Yeah, I know the author. I haven't read this book. I thought for a second you were showing How to Change Your Mind, which is a book about drugs and what they do to you neurologically.
Because of the cover?
No, it's called How to Change Your Mind.
Yeah, but do you know of Ellen de Botton, The School of Life? Yeah, I love him.
I love Proust a lot. I actually love Proust more than James Joyce. Because those are the two that usually get coupled, right? In the stream of consciousness style of writing.
The way he has talked about Proust, मेरे को लग रहा है मैं कभी पढ़ ही नहीं पाऊंगा उनको, because like this is my first endpoint into Proust. I think he's very difficult to read. I think easy नहीं है वो काम.
Yeah. But Proust, I mean, is very rewarding if you're patient, but you have to have a lot of time. Proust is not a very social media world type reader because we're also distracted now. Segueing from the books on films or filmmakers, the weirdest book I've read about films, but I love it madly, from this writer who I really enjoy. It's somebody called Jeff Dyer, this writer. And Jeff Dyer has written a book called Zona. The name is a book about a film about a room. Nice. And it's a book about Tarkovsky's Stalker.
Oh.
And the whole book, essentially, it feels at first like he's just writing a synopsis or a description of the film. That's it. Puri kitab mein bas ye hota hai, fir ye hota hai, fir ye hota hai. But it's so good. And if you watch the film a bit and read the book a bit and keep doing it in snippets and vignettes, it is amazing. Like, I really love it because I love Tarkovsky's Stalker. And, certain films become a kind of blindness, obviously. Yeah. And that book really mines that kind of a feeling.
Wow. A book about a film about a room.
Yeah. It's called Zona, a book about a film about a room.
Lovely.
Who are the filmmakers that are really big that you dislike?
I'll tell you some films that I couldn't appreciate. Like, it's a very... so I couldn't appreciate Taxi Driver. I don't like Tamasha. A lot of people in India love Tamasha. And Taxi Driver particularly is...
Scorsese often is such a divisive...
also, I didn't like Irishman. I couldn't like Irishman.
So it's like, I noticed, I've heard, for instance, Anand say in a lot of interviews that Gandhi, that like Scorsese just doesn't do it for him. And I've heard from some other directors and so on. I think I like Scorsese. I mean, Taxi Driver, I enjoyed, I think. And I like his craft. It's like a lot of films are very big or important because they're able to articulate something crucial in the current zeitgeist that needs to be said or expressed or articulated but hasn't been said. right? Maybe with Taxi Driver, that kind of a particular, like the male figure, male quasi-misogynistic figure in the face of urban decay, loneliness and crippling isolation, and that becoming a kind of pathological thing was really big then. Similarly, I think like there are certain films that like you wonder how they're going to age, not because of political correctness, but in terms of whether they're saying what is, for instance, Fight Club.
Right. So what do you think, like it doesn't like work now, or like what's your take on it?
Fight Club for me has worked significantly lesser every time.
Crazy.
To a point where it's like a very steep graph. Like I really liked it, but every time I've gone back, that particular moment of late capitalism, of just dehumanizing labor, has now somewhat transformed because of social media, right? So the 9 to 5 corporate job and the kind of dehumanizing alienness of it has gotten complicated, for the worse or for the better, the jury's still out. But the affective world of us just scrolling through Insta Reels or all of that has changed something of this kind of the Edward Norton figure of the late capitalist cubicle worker is not as punctual to our contemporary zeitgeist. So I think similarly in a lot of these classics, these figures sort of change, whereas some films just become far more important suddenly, right? Some earlier films that suddenly become like a film like Network by
Network
just becomes more and more and more important. It's a film from the 1970s. Terry Gilliam's work and the steampunk stuff, I think will come back soon. So, like time, it's like this philosopher Giorgio Agamben has this idea of the untimely as a kind of form of friendship that one feels, or all of us sometimes feel a bit out of joint with the current times, right? Like we're not punctual to the current times, and then you find a book or a philosopher or a piece of art where that could be from 100 years ago, where you suddenly feel like this is it. I feel fully connected, because that person's being slightly out of sync or out of joint with time in their age feels connected to us. And so works of art often wax and wane. It's a sort of a relationship.
Crazy. And the thing you mentioned about the filmmakers I dislike the filmmaker. I think his name is David O. Russell, the Silver Lining Playbook guy.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Nothing. American Hustle, none of those films really.
Nothing worked for me ever.
Same. I felt similarly with, the guy who's made, what's his name? The Adam McKay, the guy who's made and all of that. Similarly, I'm not.
Yes, I'm not a big Don't Look Up fan, but Adam McKay is also the guy who made the first 2 episodes of Succession. So he set the tone for everything. So I kind of like him because of like being the first director of Succession.
Right. So there is nothing in Succession in terms of the directorial tone that attracts me. I like the story and the world, but in terms of the directorial craft, we have seen that in that kind of a handheld verite form sort of a style in multiple. We've seen it in The Newsroom. We've seen it in so many other styles. So the grammar of the direction itself doesn't attract me for Succession. It's the pleasure of plot.
And you mentioned Anand Gandhi. Anand Gandhi had made a post about like Don't Look Up, because मेरे को था यार कि मैं appreciate ही नहीं कर पाया, मेरे को बिल्कुल parody like और जो लगी. And then he's like, when everything fails, this is the kind of route you need to go towards. But still, like, मैं नहीं appreciate कर पाया Don't Look Up.
No, so did he like the film or did he not like it?
Yeah, he loved the film. He loved it.
Oh, okay. I mean, see, of course, I mean, it's a subjective thing. So I didn't, it didn't work for me at all. And also, I mean, Anand, of course, has a lot of very specific tastes, and I appreciate how much he puts out what he likes and what he dislikes, and really stakes an opinion in the cultural space. So I think he is a significant voice. I often find myself disagreeing with certain takes on certain films and certain ideas, etc. But it's like one respects a kind of well-formed argument, even if you disagree with it.
Which Chaitanya Thamane film do you like more, Court or The Disciple?
Court, hands down. Hands down. Court was incredible. Disciple is also a very, very major, significant work. But I have, I have some quibbles with it, as one does of many. And I'm sure and know that he has quibbles with all that. It's fine. I mean, that's it's the thing of making work when you're around the same age period. But Court was incredible. Court is remarkable. That kind of a observational clinical style, like very, very, very accomplished.
Lovely. And I just wanted to mention one last film. I am a big Sofia Coppola fan, but there is this one particular film that I regard I give high regards to. It's called Somewhere. And
I haven't seen that.
So Somewhere is my favorite Sofia Coppola film and one of my all-time favorite films. Okay. And it's a very nicely done superficial film about an actor who lives in LA. But I'm I connected to it on a different level. But then I went and read Richard Brody's review of Somewhere. And they need to be done together. You watch Somewhere and then read what Richard Brody has written.
Reviews often do that, I have to say, but I don't like recent Richard Brody at all. It's too much about, he reads films too much through a kind of social or political lens.
Has he reviewed your film?
No, I mean, we had A.O. Scott and we had Amy Tobin.
A.O. Scott has done wow.
So, I mean, good reviews change. Good reviews are incredible.
Yeah.
Who's the guy, the Guardian guy? Peter Bradshaw reviews. Or they really elevate a film. And especially films that really confuse you about whether you're not sure about whether you love it or you hate it. Like sometimes it happened with Titane for me. There are some aspects of that film that I really hated.
Yeah.
Some aspects of that film that I really liked, admired. So, and I had to read reviews to try and, appreciate things that the people have appreciated.
So, I recommended it on my channel recently. So I watched After Sun. I didn't get it. Then I saw Rahul Desai's review of After Sun. And it shook me because in that review, he accepts that he didn't get After Sun. Then he went and read reviews. Why is it such a great film? And then I loved how a reviewer accepted I didn't get the buzz around it. And then he watched it again and then he wrote the review of After Sun. It's kind of great.
I have to say with After Sun, I really admired it and liked it. The first time, it wasn't like I was cold by it, and I could see the skill of that kind of a elliptical style of filmmaking. But I wasn't blown away, and I read a lot of these things, and even then I wasn't blown away after reading reviews. I read Rahul's thing a lot. I mean, in India, the reviewers I read Rahul Desai quite a bit. I obviously read Raja quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because of the familial connection. Yeah. Bhardwaj Rangan I used to read. I liked it when Santosh Desai used to talk about films. But I mean, because I have a film theory sort of a background and training, I like reading a lot of Indian film academics who write about films. So I don't know if you know of the work of, say, Ranjani Mazumdar or Ashish Rajadhaksha or interesting work on analytic work, theoretical work on Indian cinema. We
have discussed books and movies now. And is there any music that you want to talk about? Any music recommendations? I'm sure there must be a lot, but
yeah, this is the problem here is of plenty because it's so bountiful that I wouldn't know what to. The tune that I've been again, let's just start from a left field sort of a thing. The tune that I've been really possessed by recently is Satyajit Ray's dun 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 dun. That classic sort of and I've been reading a lot of his essays about music and music in films. And actually I was just listening to, David Lowery, this wonderful director who made The Green Knight, the Dev Patel film.
I have to watch it. I'm hearing great things about it.
And he made Ghost Story before that, which is also excellent. Really good A24 director, David Lowery. He has a very good discussion on, I like directors talking about music bits quite a bit. Like David Lowery has a good discussion. I think Darren Aronofsky has a good discussion of music in films that I like, where he discusses Russian music and so on. I've been listening to a lot of musical like OSTs now, like film tracks.
Yeah. And you mentioned this, and so some of my unreleased episodes on the channel, the two filmmakers I did them with Abhishek Chaube and Bijoy Nambia. The music segment in both the episodes, like, are amazing because of a
I didn't realize
filmic.
it's, I didn't
Yeah,
realize Abhishek also is into. I mean, the music in his films is very good. I
yeah,
really like Chobe is a very very
yeah.
accomplished, of course. Like goes without saying, very very serious director.
So music, the way the and like Bijoy said this one thing to me, some of the tracks he liked so much in his life that he never revisits them again.
Yeah,
He,
same. That happens with me as well, especially with Leonard Cohen songs. I'm a
uh,
giant Leonard Cohen fan. In my early 20s, I used to be a big Jim Morrison fan,
hmm,
the Doors fan. So I went to Père Lachaise, the cemetery in
hmm.
Paris, where and that's also a fun thing, which I used to do in the early 20s, but not anymore, of going to the places where your favorite musicians are buried. And, you'll always see people leaving their records or playing some music around, or some young musician is doing something there. So that's a fun sort of a thing to do. Sorry, I don't have a consolidated good answer, because it's like maybe I should just look at my Spotify and tell you.
Yeah,
But
that's a lot of people on our channel do that. Like you can open it and see your like playlist or
oh, really?
something. Yeah, yeah. Please, please, please.
I spend about 2 hours at least a day on good days with listening to things. And I love headphones, and headphones, and walking on the terrace or doing a walk and listening is really central to a day being good for me.
Wow, wow.
So, and now increasingly it's actually less music and more podcasts and stuff. But I mean, Leonard Cohen is a huge, huge, huge sort of person. But because Abhay, and Abhay is such a music
Oh,
head.
dude, I have.
Sometimes, especially with Vinay is very kind, and I just send him text saying send music, and him, or I don't know if you know Rahul Jain. He made
I
machines.
don't.
So Vinay and Abhay often send me music tracks which are very very good. Do you know somebody called Shai Benzur?
Shai Benzu, can you tell me a little more about him? Maybe I think I know this
Instrumental
one.
stuff. Then there's
Is he the
somebody
one
called,
who was in the Paul Thomas Anderson Junoon?
oh, could be. I don't know. I haven't seen Junoon.
Okay,
Could be.
okay.
Um, I'm very accepting when it comes to music. I like a lot of of late I've been listening to a lot of instrumental stuff. Blick Bassi. I'm just looking through recent listens. Somebody called Dhafir Youssef, Yom, etc. I also like listening to a lot of classical music, and I listen to a lot of Indian music. I like A.R. Rahman a lot.
Wow.
I listen to a lot of Indian classical music also. While driving to this friend's place where I'm doing this from, I was listening to, Hans Ur Jayega by Kumar Gandharv.
Okay.
So that kind of stuff. But I mean, I'll try and listen to as much, but I'm fairly eclectic, and I'm not great with names when it comes to, like, in films, I'm very good with rattling off names and all of that, but not so in music.
One of my favorite bands, I would love to know if you also follow them, Sigur Rós.
Yes, hugely, enormously.
Wow.
Enormously. I mean, I was just telling a friend that I want to go for a Sigur Rós concert.
Wow.
What did you think of Sigur Rós in Game of Thrones?
No, I hated their Sigur Game of Thrones thing. I don't like in everything they did with Game of Thrones. That's
because it was so showy, right? It was just like
it's not Sigur Rós.
Yeah.
So another thing, like if I don't know,
Hans Zimmer?
Some of him, yes. Like
I have to say, Hans Zimmer, if of all the popular things that everybody likes but you don't like, that kind of a hot take would be Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer just never. I find it very tiring and familiar.
Yeah. And one thing that I have started doing a lot is when I listen to an album, and like I told you, I'm Abhi's friend, so he got me into a lot of deep electronic music. So there's this. So I used to listen to techno music, and I'm really into techno. And then I would read a Pitchfork review on
he put me on that as well. So actually, Abhay, since this is a celebration of Abhay's music stuff, Abhay put me on to Interstellar Funk and that kind of techno stuff. And actually, we are going to this one club type place in Amsterdam called Day School, where they ask you the name of the music that you like.
Yeah.
I got very nervous, and he actually furnished me a lot of names that I then started listening to.
Yeah, so I learn a lot from music reviews also. I think they are hot take better than movie reviews in regard to the kind of visuals and the imagery and the articulation you get.
Yes.
Yeah. So their Sigur Rós album, I don't know how to pronounce it, Agaste Baijun, the main album that they have. Its review on the 1999 or 2000 review on Pitchfork is beautiful.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah, you'll love it.
I'm a big Sigur Rós fan. I'll check it out. The band that I'm really into right now is Velvet Underground.
Oh yes.
Who I used to be a fan of, and then suddenly now I'm like, because I saw the Velvet Underground film, and I suddenly got back into them.
This happened with me with Linkin Park. I am suddenly back into Linkin Park.
I was never into Linkin Park until now.
Yeah, but this is amazing, Shaunak. I am sure we can't I would have loved to do more segments with you, but we are short on time. It would be great if we can do a part 2 of this in future sometime.
Yeah, for sure.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, this was genuinely fun and pleasurable to talk, and so happy to not give another interview with a question about how did you start thinking of all that brief. So very welcome to brief. Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope everybody who's watching subscribes to Chalchitra Talks. I had no idea what this was and only recently discovered it. And this conversation has been utterly and immensely fun. And I'm going to definitely go and check all the references that you were talking about. And I hope you subscribe to it.
Hope you liked the episode, guys. And like I said, मैं आपको एक recommendation दूंगा अगर आप end तक video देखेंगे तो here's my recommendation. Movie पे एक Oscar nominated film है, वो भी शौनक सेन की ऑल दैट ब्रीथ्स के जैसे इसी साल ऑस्कर के लिए नॉमिनेट हुई थी. इस फिल्म का नाम है क्लोज एक बेल्जियन फिल्म मेकर हैं लूकस डॉन्ट, इन्होंने बनाई है. क्लोज इज अ स्टोरी ऑफ टू बॉयज हु हैव अ वेरी इंटिमेट फ्रेंडशिप विद ईच अदर. दे ऑल्सो स्लीप इन द सेम बेड एट टाइम्स. दे डू वेरी स्मॉल थिंग्स विच मीन अ लॉट टू ईच अदर. बट जैसे जैसे स्कूल जाना चालू करते हैं और लोगों को नोटिस होता है कि यार ये दोनों बहुत ज़्यादा क्लोज हैं, सो इनका मजाक उड़ाने लगते हैं स्कूल वाले. इन द फियर ऑफ गेटिंग ऑस्ट्रेसाइज्ड इन दोनों की फ्रेंडशिप थोड़ी ख़राब होने लग जाती है because they get conscious. This film is a very beautiful tale of how something beautiful can get affected, can get ruined when society comes into play. And आप फिर conscious हो जाते हो and you might end up doing things which are really really bad. It's a great film. It's available on movie. ये movie आपको काफ़ी रुलाने वाली है और मेरा suggestion होगा कि आप अकेले बैठ के ये movie देखें because I think it's a very personal experience. But don't miss it out, guys. So आपको All That Breathes अगर अभी तक नहीं देखी तो पहले तो वो देखनी है and you have to watch Close on movie. So this was it, guys, and great episodes coming your way. I hope you liked this episode. I hope you liked the Colin and Sameer episode, and I'll be back with more episodes and recommendations on Chalchitra Talks.